3 days ago, I helped my client Jonathan set up an IUL policy at age 0. That's correct. Today we are going to look at the minimum and maximum ages, the differences and advantages based on when you open, and why it's never too late, regardless of your health, to open an IUL. Let's get into it. The minimum age. Here's that example you can see here, opening the policy at age 0. That's because he has a son that is less than 6 months old. The son is the insured, Jonathan is the owner, and here is the projection. The idea with this type of policy is, number one, he has a little bit of coverage on his son. God forbid his son were to pass away early. Well, he would have a death benefit there that he could cover funeral expenses. Number two is that he's putting $100 a month in, starting early, letting this money grow. And if he would like, he can transfer ownership to his son once his son is no longer a juvenile, otherwise 18 years old. But also, he doesn't have to transfer ownership if he just wants to end up using it for himself. Let's take a look at some of the actual rates of return this is projecting. First here, we can see at 30 years, illustrating at a 7.08% illustration rate, it says $97,550 would be the projected cash value. So let's go down here to year 30 and change that to 97,550, and then we're going to subtract the 1,200 that he put in that year. So let's do that. We're going to change year here to 30, and then we are going to delete the amount of money that he put in the rest of these years. So pretend here, if he was putting in $100 a month for 30 years, this would be the internal rate of return he would have at this point if the policy performed at 7.08% before fees. If that was the case, you can see here, what he would have ended up netting was 5.77%, completely income tax free. He can use that however he would like. This is when he's just 30 years old, or he could let that continue to grow. He's past the early year fees now. That's a great option. You can see the net fees up to this point, just 30 years in, is a 1.3% fee. Now that might seem very expensive. However, especially for these younger policies where they're starting very early, they are getting juvenile rates on insurance, which basically means they're not able to qualify for a preferred or a preferred plus rating. Why? That's because actually someone who is less than 1 year old is statistically more likely to pass away or pass away in the next few years than someone who's 18-year-old and healthy. They've usually got past that gray area. This isn't necessarily the case for the juveniles. Now, let's take a look if he continued to put that $1,200 in throughout all of those years and what it would be at age 50. So if we scroll down a little bit here, we can see that's $435,098. So 435,098. You have to keep guessing here with this big internal rate of return formula until this number is as close to 0 as possible. And you can see in this case, if this child kept this until their age 50, policy was performing at 7.08% before fees. After fees, retroactive all the way back to day 1, he was averaging a 0.28% fee. That means he was earning 6.8% tax-free without ever risking the chance of losing due to market downturns. If the child was not doing this, and let's say it was in a taxable environment, then he would have to have earned 10.2% pre-tax average to be able to get that rate of return. And now he has a fee of 0.28%, actually a little bit less than that, into perpetuity. So clearly some big advantages there. Now, a critique might be, what if the policy doesn't actually perform this well? Well, let's go back to the illustration and look at what if the policy, illustrating at a 4.75% rate of return before fees, was actually the result. So here we can see the account value at that time is $201,399. So if we change it to that and then go back here, change this to 4.75, we see to get this number to 0, this person, retroactive back to day 1, had a net fee of 0.014%. That means he earned an alternative rate, which is certainly on the conservative side, still earned 4.74% net of all fees, net of all taxes. Again, if he was in a 33% tax bracket that whole time, he would have had to gain 7.104% to be able to get this number, and that's before tax. Now he's going to be able to continue to grow this money if he wants to wait to use it until retirement. And again, keep in mind, this was the conservative projection. Now for the maximum age, most insurance companies will allow up to age 75 or even some to 85. But keep in mind, this is just the age of the insured. The insured does not have to be the owner. So for example, this would never happen, but let's say someone age 100 wanted to open an IUL, or someone age 70 who was just uninsurable and wanted to insure their spouse. If their spouse was healthy, they could be the insured of the policy, and the age 100 person or the uninsurable 70-year-old could be the owner. So if you're not entirely concerned about the death benefit on yourself, but more so the cash value that you can use while living, which is most of the reason people are looking at cash value life insurance in general, or overfunded cash value life insurance, that's still an option. That's how, regardless of your age or health, you can still qualify for these plans. Now, a common misconception about doing these types of policies is that if you are the insured when you're way older, well, you're way older, so the cost of insurance is way more, and your internal rate of return just isn't going to be able to compete as if you had done this younger. What people fail to realize, though, is as you get older, the minimum amount of insurance that you have to be paying for actually decreases. To make this very clear, today we are going to look at an example with the same company, same health rating. We're just going to use standard in the same time horizon of a 20 to 50-year-old, so that's someone who starts at age 20 all the way to age 50, versus someone who starts at age 60 and carries it out all the way to age 90. Both funded with, I actually ran this at $1 million, but they funded it as fast as they could. So the 20-year-old was able to fund the policy faster, a little over $300,000 a year, so he filled this up in 3 years, and the 60-year-old had to fill this up over the course of 6 years. Here's the 20-year-old illustrating at a 6.42% rate of return before all of fees. We see the net internal rate of return, which is after all fees, was 5.71%, and $5,020,000 was the total amount that he ended up with. So $5,020,000, and the internal rate of return was 5.71%. And keep in mind on both of these, we're illustrating at 6.42%. Next, for the 60-year-old, we have here again illustrating at the 6.42% rate of return before all fees. After all fees, we have the internal rate of return at 5.42%, and then we have at 4.34 million. So it was 4,344,000, and what was the internal rate of return? 5.42%. So is it a little bit better when you start at age 20, 5.71 versus 5.42? Absolutely. However, keep in mind a couple things. Why is this number, the 5 million, much higher than this number over here with the 4,300,000? That is because this person on the left funded the policy in 3 years. That's an advantage for starting younger, is funding it quicker. The person on the right funded it over 6 years. Now, to make up for that, that's why we didn't just put the amount, and that's why we put the internal rate of return on both of these, because that tells you what the rate of return was retroactive back to day one, accounting for when you put the money in and where it ended up. So in the end, to look at this as, oh wow, well, one of them is almost $700,000 more than the other, is the wrong way to look at it. Instead, say, hey, this one is 5.71, this one is 5.42, this one on the left here actually was getting a 0.29% higher rate of return on average back to day one. Therefore, it is a little bit better to start earlier, hence the extra 0.29%. However, not that much. Now, some people will still say, even after seeing this, it doesn't matter. Indexed universal life functions on an annual renewable term basis. Therefore, the cost of insurance has to be going up every single year because the older I get, the more likely I am to die. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to do it when I'm older. So first, here's what they get right, is that the cost per $1,000 of insurance as you get older does what? It increases. Why? Because just like that objection says, you get older, you're more likely to pass away. However, let's take a look at this little example here. So if you have $500,000 of cash value and $1 million worth of death benefit, that means you're paying for 1 million minus 500,000, $500,000 worth of insurance. However, this is hopefully going to grow. So once this 500,000 grows over time to, let's say, 700,000, and you still have a $1 million death benefit, well, now you're paying for 1 million minus 700,000 equals $300,000 worth of insurance. So did the cost per every $1,000 worth of insurance go up? Yes, it did. However, you are paying for less 1,000s of insurance. And that's exactly the point. Yes, cost of insurance is always going to go up each individual year, technically until you hit age 95 on some carriers, then they'll completely wipe it out. However, you are paying for less insurance each year, and that's how the insurance is actually able to get cheaper as a percentage of your cash value over time, just like we showed in those internal rate of return reports in the very beginning. Now, another common critique is, well, I was paying for $1 million of insurance this whole time. My cash value grew from however much I put in all the way up to $700,000. And when I die, well, they only pay the face value. They only pay the million. Even though I was paying $1 million the whole time, I had $700,000 in cash value. They just threw that out the window and I still only get the million. I should get 1.7 million. That's not fair. And what I would say to this is you actually don't want that to be the case. Because if you had kept an additional $1 million above the cash value the whole time, which you can actually do, well, what would happen? That means that exact critique of the fact that as you get older, the cost of insurance gets more expensive is going to destroy your policy. Why is that? Because just as the critique says, when you get more insurance, you have to pay more for it. That is exactly why, as our cash value grows, we want to keep that death benefit the same. More of our cash value is considered part of the death benefit. Therefore, we're paying for less and less insurance each year. And actually, we are getting exactly what we're paying for, because at this point, we're not actually paying for $1 million worth of insurance. We're only paying, as we showed above, for $300,000 worth of insurance, and we had cash value of $700,000. So we get all of our cash value, and we get all of the insurance we were paying for, which is only $300,000. Therefore, we get both. That transfers income tax free. Now, even though you can go up to 75 or even 85 with some companies, the oldest age you actually should open an indexed universal life totally depends on your goals. If you need income and this is the only money that you have to take income from immediately, indexed universal life might not be an option, because generally you're going to want to delay it at least 4 to 6 years. If you need it immediately, there's other options like fixed indexed annuities, and these can get you guaranteed income starting right away. Now, if you're someone who does need immediate income, but you can take immediate income from another source for the first 4 to 6 years, then this could be an option where you take the income from the other source for the first 4 to 6 years, and then once that's over, you start taking from the indexed universal life. This could be a time you can open it, regardless again of how old you are. So to make things very simple, what's the oldest age? I would say 5 years before you're needing to take income from that vehicle. What's the best time to start? Well, of course, even though there isn't a crazy difference in age, as you saw in that example, it was more beneficial the earlier you started, so the best time to start is now. The earlier you do that, the earlier you're going to get through those early year fees and let the policy really start working its magic, as long as you have that little 4 to 6 year gap before you're going to need to start taking income from this. Again, whether that's from retirement income, pension maximization, working capital account, it doesn't matter. If you'd like to see how this might be able to fit into your own personal situation, book a 20-minute quick consult with myself down below. I'd be happy to help out.